If someone was to listen to our conversation today and apply the things you have to say, how would their life change?
I'd like to say that it can and will change in every single aspect that you apply it to. I think that, and actually one of my students in Minecraft, she joined a few months ago and I asked her, I said, in which ways do you think that your life has changed since joining? And she said every single aspect of her life has changed. And I think that the principles that I teach and I coach on and that I practice, I think they really can be applied to every single area of your life. So, yeah, I think it just depends on you and what you choose and what you intend, right? So it's all about intention there. And it's like, if you want to apply it to relationships, you can, but also just being more in control of your brain. I like to make the analogy of if you are driving a car down the road and you don't know how that car works. If it breaks down, you don't know how to fix it. You'll be stuck there, right? And I have a story of like my car breaking down. My brother, luckily, is a mechanical engineer. And I called him. He's like, oh, pour water in this one little hole or whatever. And I could be on my merry way, right? I got home safely. But if you don't know how, and the brain works the same way, right? So let's say you're stressed out or you are overwhelmed or you're struggling to focus or whatever it is. If you don't know how your brain works, you might be stuck. But when you know how your brain works, you can then use that knowledge and apply it to whatever area you're really struggling with. So that I think that it really can be applied to many different areas of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I've had many a time in my life a car that's broken down on me, not been a mechanical engineer, and pushed my car up a hill. And that's what it sometimes feels like for people. I feel like people feel that they're fighting against their brain. They're breaking down their mind. They're trying to push forward and they just feel stuck. I feel like so many people listening right now feel stuck in their job. They feel stuck in a bad relationship. They feel stuck looking for a career. If someone feels stuck, what do they need to understand about the brain in order to start the process to get unstuck?
Yeah. So I think that feeling of being stuck, it's really quite natural when you think about neuroscience and your biology. The brain loves to keep you in what is safe and normal to you. The brain is also, I like to call it a prediction machine. So we don't necessarily experience reality. We experience, our brain sort of filtering everything we see, hear, feel, touch, but also predicting what's about to happen. And that's why a lot of times, we feel like anxious or whatever it is. It has to do with the brain's predicting kind of something that's upcoming. And so I think that feeling of being stuck is quite normal and natural. And I just want to say that first, but also understanding which area you're stuck in, right? And I'm going to take it an interesting direction right now, but I like to talk about procrastination because it's a good example of feeling stuck, right? So if let's say you have a goal and you're like starting a podcast and you're like, okay, I want to do it. And then you're procrastinating it, right? So I always say that there are 3 reasons why people procrastinate. And the first reason is there's an identity sort of mismatch. And what I mean by that is that your sense of self and who you believe that you are doesn't match with you working toward the goal of launching a podcast. And this actually kind of resonated with me personally whenever I was starting to write a book. I was procrastinating writing my book and I was like, why am I doing this? I know it's a goal. I know I want to do it, but I don't know why I'm procrastinating. And the default mode network in the brain is really what's at play here. So the default mode network is really appropriately named because it kind of helps to regulate and propel our default mode of behavior, right? So it's responsible for our default mode of being and doing. But it's also responsible for our sense of self and constructing the narrative or the story of our lives. And so if your sense of self doesn't match, if your identity doesn't match whatever it is that you're trying to do, then your default mode network is not really going to be helping you do the behaviors or take the action toward starting a podcast. And so I always tell my clients, I tell my students, I tell everyone on social media, I'm like, just identity shift, shift your identity. You can just start to identify as the version of you who has done the thing. And so that's kind of the first part of that. And then the second.
Let's talk about that first one. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And I love the way you broke down the default mode network because this identity mismatch that you're talking about, Are you saying that if you don't, I know you've said something which I love. You said science says you have to act like you already have it before something can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying? That you've got to feel like I'm already a author, I'm already a podcaster? How does someone practically apply that identity to make sure it's aligned?
Right. So it's really just choosing to identify as that person, right? And so when I say that, you have to act like you already have it or like you already are it in order to do it or be it. It works the same way. The analogy I use there is falling asleep at night. Like when you fall asleep at night, you lay down, you close your eyes, you slow your breath, and you pretend like you're asleep until you fall asleep, and your brain makes it so. And life works that way as well. And you have to act like it and move like it, right? Like you're not gonna become a drummer in a band unless you act like a drummer, and drummers practice. And so it's sort of like, and so how do I apply that like practically? I guess from my book example, I really just decided I'm an author. Like from this moment forward, I'm an author. And I think a lot of times we don't realize the power that we have to choose those sorts of things. And this is another reason why I tell people to be so careful about the labels that they use to identify themselves and the labels that they put on themselves. And growing up in my own life, I had so many different labels put onto me that I believed and just kind of allowed to describe who I was. And that impacted my life. It impacted my health. It impacted everything in my world. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. But yeah, and so applying that practically, a lot of times it really just looks like choosing to identify as that version of you. Like if I'm trying to start a podcast, I am a podcaster. And there I am doing it, right?
And it's almost like, how does an author behave? And let me start practicing that now.